We've been away too long. 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 Israel.
Shalom. Can I be heard? Shalom. Can I be heard? Shalom. Shalom. Let me know, because I don't have the access myself in that department. All right. We hoping and praying everybody is well and will be better. We are on the platforms, Mora Yeshaya Torah lessons, Mora Yeshaya Hebrew lessons, and the Facebook profile Yeshaya Author Danite. All right. So I guess that means yes, I can be heard. All right, in that case, thank you for that. Let's do this, looking at the comments. All righty, now I want to say this, if I may. The song that y'all heard that people were saying is nice and so forth, the man who wrote and sang that song that was just playing, may he rest in peace, was a man from the house of Yahuda or the house of Judah by the name of Adon Dawid. He was a musician, and he was one of the first persons I ever remember growing up seeing in Israel that was wearing a turban when I was a child back in the 80s. And that particular song came out called Yisrael, and it's on YouTube. But that particular song came out in 1987. And it was a hit. It was a classic. There is the long version of it. There is the short version of it, and there's the instrumental version of such. All right, but just wanted to put that out there. My friend sat there and put some pictures to it, and so that's what that was as far as it goes with that. I want to, on a human level, give a shout out to the person we see here. It's all good. When I be speaking upon constructive criticism and things of that kind of nature, I actually get that from my older spiritual brother in that particular case. Like for instance, the concept of using a microphone came from him. For me, just use, because I use a thing called StreamYard, for those who do know, and they suggest a mic, but they don't really push a microphone usage. You know, they say put your headphones on and talk, and it could go through, and it can. You know, and so looking at it like that in that particular case. All right. So what we can do, when this video is uploaded, let's see if it works right now. In this, I can go over here and go to YouTube, go into my particular history within it, and see if that song comes up in that particular case. Let's see, and if so, I will sit there and put it inside of the comments in that particular case, and thank you for that. All right, so I'm gonna sit there and take it from there, look at it from there. Here we go. In this matter here, this here is the link. I don't know if y'all able to copy and paste it from there in that case, but that's it there to the song that was playing in that particular case. All right, and I'm going to put it inside the description as well. But definitely wanted to give a shout out on a human level to the person that we see here. It's all good. And for those who may not know, IKR means I know right. In regards with the song being nice. Again, that song was written and sang by an elder who's now deceased by the name of Adon Dawid. And this is why, may he rest in peace, we be talking about, or we do talk about, get your work in while you're here. Not everybody's going to always know and remember you, you know, and so forth and so on. So it definitely is something to look at, you know, in that particular case. This is a man who I know his children, not to get too personal into the man's family's business, but his children too are also into music. All right. And that's as much as I'm going to say regarding his sons in that particular case, because I didn't even have their number to even send them the link for this. You know what I mean? But again, that song was written. Well, should I say it was the record came out in 1987. I don't know exactly the date of it having been written, but I do know this. I was 7 years old inside the congregation, and when that song came out, Israel was loving it. You understand? It's one of the few Israelite musicians that actually took the liberty and the time to even go and make a record, go into the studio and so on. You know, so that's something to care to point out for say reference purposes. In this particular presentation, we're going to get into the Hebrew, brothers and sisters, of the book of Psalms 119. I'm sorry, no, that's the next lesson. I jumped the gun. We're going to get into the Hebrew of Psalms 92. Psalms 119 is the Hebrew we want to go over later on. And the purpose in that particular matter, what we intend to do with biblical Hebrew. For those who've been following, ask you please subscribe to the channel. More Yeshaya Hebrew lessons. It would definitely be appreciated. Is we want to go over biblical Hebrew now, having started with the alphabet and moving on from there, all the way into the different verb stems. We're now continuing on with dealing with biblical Hebrew, which is some of the oldest Hebrew that we know, which is in part one of the reasons why I was okay no longer dealing in profanity in this particular case, because there is no profane words in the Hebrew language. You understand? Say in that particular matter. All right. So we're going to try to pull this up. Let's see if we slideshow from the beginning, if it shows up there. All right. I do see it on my end showing up. All right. And so I'm going to, as some people have stated, it depends on my ruach or my spirit. We're going to turn the camera on and then pull this back up if we will. All right. Excuse me. Looking at it in this case, and this is something I want to state about the whole camera thing. I'm not a Muslim. And one of the things that I heard that Malcolm X was told by his teacher is do not love the camera. One of the things that they were saying Bob Marley was on, may he rest in peace, was, oh, Bob's face is not in the matter of Bob's face is not in the matter of the record. And he was like, basically keeping it humble. That's not even something that's even needs to be with the whole ego thing in that particular case. So sometimes I'll put the camera on and sometimes I don't. One of the main reasons why I don't, when I don't, is because I hope that people would listen to the presentation and not so much, oh, look at who's doing it, you know? More so say in that particular matter. Can be reached at the number you see across the screen, 908-587-4841. The email, YYISRAEL, the number 22 at Yahoo. I knew there was something else missing. That's YYISRAEL 22 at yahoo.com. All right, just want to put that there in that case. All right, I am open to constructive criticism. Let us get into this, family, in this manner. Thank you for that. Psalm 92, and we read here, a psalm, a song for the Sabbath day. Now let's look, brothers and sisters, at this, and we want to point this out with the laser pointer. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat. Now what we're going to circle right here, brothers and sisters, as we get into this, that is even the English comma. There is no comma in Ibri Atik or ancient Hebrew. All right, just want to point that out in that particular case. Now, when brothers or sisters are saying that Hebrew has no vowels, what he or she is saying is looking at it from an English point of view by looking at the words and seeing in ancient Hebrew or even in modern script form Hebrew or even in modern block form Hebrew, you don't sit there and quote, see vowels, but babies speak. And they don't know how to read. There are people who sadly are illiterate, but they can still speak. So we in most cases, learning Hebrew over the age of 15, we are going to sit there and learn by seeing it first as opposed to hearing it first. Whereas, not to be self-centered, when my daughter sits there and says, Shalom me tob, meaning my peace is good, she does not even know how to read Hebrew. Though she has, you know what I'm saying, not to get too personal, a Hebrew name. You understand what I mean as far as it goes with that. But as far as it goes with being able to speak, you wouldn't necessarily need, if you born from the womb speaking it or learned it at an early age, you wouldn't even need to know how to read it in order to speak it as in any other language which is spoken, which is not even read. If one does not know how to say read one's language, there are certain languages even to this day that have no written form. Did you know that? Certainly in places like in Africa, there are certain language and or dialects that have no written form of it. You understand? So you might see, brothers and sisters, if you get the Hebrew book, Hebrew is Easy Volume 2, different forms of Hebrew as time went on. The Shalom inscription, the Astrakhan inscription, the matter of the different prisms inscriptions. You understand? Or the Moabite style of writing the same language. So these things, brothers and sisters, Moab and Ammon and Israel and Edom, in many cases, spoke the same language with some variants here and there. All right. So these are things here that we want to point out for reference purposes. Now let's look at this again, right? If we go here, if we will, with the laser pointer, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, right? The word Zamar, you see the Zion, the Mem, and the Resh means to sing. S-I-N-G, this is a verb, all right? Zimbra, which is the noun, all right, means music. Now, we want to point something out. If there's any questions, please feel free to put it into the chat, all right? So let's look at this if we will. We see the pin here, right? Under the resh, you have what is referred to as a chamatz, right? When that is followed by hey, that makes most cases, not all, but most cases, it makes that word a feminine word. The letter hey, brothers and sisters, is a feminine letter. All right. So these are things, again, we care to bring out for reference purposes. Greetings to BR, greetings to It's All Good, greetings to Bergen, Paris. All right. Now, on the platform, Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons, which is one of the platforms we're streaming from, we see the prefix of mem. So you can go and be asking you to subscribe to the channel, Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. And if you go on that platform, which is on YouTube, and you were to type in brothers and sisters, all right, looking at this here, the prefix of mem, you will see from December 19th, the year 2020. There's a presentation on that. 2020. Brothers and sisters, and I say this and not to sound arrogant, when we're talking about putting in that work and we start talking about getting things accomplished and wanting to be consistent and keep the channel out live, there's always something to do. You understand? My main goal in going over history in Hebrew is try to make sure I'm not redundant. So when we went over the alphabet and then the vowels, they're putting the alphabet and the vowels together. And then from then you get your grammar. And then from your grammar, you build your vocabulary. Then we go into verbs. Then we go into conjugation of verbs, past, present, future. Then we go into the passive and active of verbs. Then going from there, we go into the last part of verbs in most cases is the reflexive. Now, somebody asks a feminine letter. Yes, the letter hey is a feminine letter as well as the letter tau is a feminine letter. All right. So in Hebrew, there's a masculine and a feminine. And one of the best ways to know what a feminine is by the suffix of the letter hey. All right. So hopefully that answers the question in that particular case. And I do appreciate that the question is asked then. All right. So let's look again. A psalm, a song for the Sabbath day. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Now let's look. You got Zamar, Zimra, Mizmor. Now, how many people, and you know who you are, how many people subscribe to the platform Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons? It says I have 360 or so subscribers. How many of them are on here right now? I'm not trying to sound coon. I'm not trying to sound racial. There is a white lady who was on a platform who actually reached out to me. Why do I emphasize and mention that? Not that we need them or they need us or anything of that kind of sort, but more so, brothers and sisters, you never know who's listening to you when you're out there doing something. There are people, to my knowledge, who are subscribed to the channel who do not eat like I eat. And I don't eat like they eat. Let me explain what I mean. There are vegetarians and vegans that are on the platform. I am not a vegetarian or a vegan. There are shrimp and pork eaters, like some of my relatives, who are subscribed to the channel. I do not eat shrimp and pork. Andy Okel, Kazir Wakasilon. You understand? So these are things to point out in that particular case. To my knowledge, there are people who are on the platform who are vegans and vegetarians. Lada'ati, to my knowledge. Yesh al hatakanot ha'eleh, who are on these platforms. Enehem oklim basar, people who do not eat meat. Lak piryot, fruit only, wagam ken rak, yorukot, and only vegetables. There is no set Hebrew word for vegetarian. So you got to sit there and describe what it is in that particular case. All right. Feminine suffix, not letter. All right. Now, yes, it's the letter hey in this case, as we see here. Thank you for the question. Right. I'm going to show it this way so it can be emphasized. All right. The letter hey, as we see here, right? Bold, and let's expand it. All right, and then we can go back to this slide. That letter that you see there that's bold and expanded, that's the letter hey. But this letter serves as a suffix. So by it being a feminine letter and it's serving as a suffix, it shows that word to be feminine. Now, that is in most cases with the letter hey. After you see under the resh, it could have been a bet, could have been a wow, but as you see here, it's the letter resh followed with the vowel or with the vowel at quamats. Not every time you see the letter hey at the end of a word does it make it feminine. But when it's followed 90 or more percent of the time with a quamats, as we see there, followed with the hey, the word is a feminine word. All right. So for instance, the word tamim means perfect. Tamima means perfect and feminine. Think you had to drink something. In the other presentation, we went over the fact of saying that the word bina means understanding. Bina ends with the letter hey. And the noon, or making the end sound, bina, that noon has a quamats underneath it. So again, thank you for the question. If you were to go on the platform your own time, Mori Yeshaya Hebrew lessons, we see the prefix of the letter mem. All right, looking at it in that particular case. What I'm going to do, brothers and sisters, looking at it like that, right? Let's see. We have Mori Yeshaya Hebrew lessons. Then we're going to go from there, right? And says the letter mem. And then when we go here, or the prefix of mem, right? I'm going to sit there and share that in here and see if it shows up. All right, looking at it in that particular case. And if it does, let me know. All right, for this is for the people who are interested in that particular case. And again, you don't have to, but we suggest, we hope that you will take out the time and subscribe to the platform that you see there in that particular case. It is definitely appreciated. All right. Now let's look. We have here, brothers and sisters, with the laser pointer, Zamar, Zimra, Mizmor. Zamar, we remember, right, means the verb to sing. Zimra, which was one of my mother's friends, may they both rest in peace, from the old congregation that you heard that song from earlier. Zimbra, and then you have Mizmor, and that mem serves as a prefix. So in the video you see there, brothers and sisters, let's see if that shows up. It actually when looking at it, let me see, looking at the comments. No, that one didn't show up. What showed up was that song again. So let me see. Thank you for that, family. All right. Right, but what's there when it says it's there? I think I copied and pasted the same song twice. I was trying to get something else into the chat there. Let me see. The prefix mem. Let me look at it from this point. Copy. Go back here if that's there. All right. Yep, and that's it there. Now it's there. Thank you. And looking again at it in that particular case, this is what we want to do for those who are interested in that case. Okay. Shalom again, Moray. Appreciate the lessons this evening. Giving honor to the Most High. I want to give honor to Yah. Now, I'm gonna get a little personal. Show you that the Most High knows and sees things. And when we think maybe he's not seeing or not acknowledging, such is not the case. And we already know that. Israel, we go over Deuteronomy 28 all the time. Certainly starting from verse 14 and 15. But I want to say that I have, not to get too personal, 2 jobs. Neither job pressures me about working on Shabbat, working on the Sabbath. Neither job is like, hey, for those who do know, my government name starts with a V. All right. But I authored the book name Vincent Hutchinson in honor of my biological, may my dad rest in peace. Now, right, looking at it like this, I'm never asked, and certainly never mandated to work on Shabbat. Yet a brother has 2 jobs. At one point, a brother was working on Saturday night after the Sabbath. The way the schedule works now, I don't work after the Sabbath. So when I am listening to people teaching online, whether I comment or not, Makiel Uriel on Shabbat, or if I'm listening to Saul Naaman and Gavreko Kavia regarding the prayer line that they have, or getting into listening to other people's presentations, sometimes then it's not trying to be funny, but like, yeah, you are more you speak. No. Solomon said, it's the time to speak, it's time to refrain from speaking. So on Shabbat, if another person's platform is here, I try not to go live when other people's platforms are live. Because I think that's kind of not disrespectful, but take the time where we can all be in one platform at one time. And then in most platforms, this is now 12-something so-called Sunday morning. Not many people are up teaching at this time. Not many people doing presentations this time. I am a night owl, as the saying may go. The word for owl like that is the word kos. You see owl in Leviticus 11 about the animals we don't eat. All right, just to throw that out there in that particular case. So these are things to be pointed out that, yes, I do work so-called Sunday night, so-called Monday night, so-called Wednesday night. But I am not even asked to work in many cases on so-called Saturday night. So why not take out the time when one is in the Ruach to sit there and get into that kind of matter? You understand? Just wanted to point that out in that particular case. So I'm not trying to be preachy, but in giving honor to the Most High. I remember, if I may go, take a little moment, when I did not know Hebrew like that. I was 11. I left the congregation one Shabbat and went home, what you would call going home early. And I was, like I stated, 11 years old and was still Shabbat. And I remember praying to the Most High. And I asked the Most High to help me with Hebrew. That was on the Shabbat, the so-called Saturday. 2 days later, Yom Sheni, the so-called Monday, I was reading Hebrew. Brah, brah. I didn't understand what I was reading, but I knew from right then that the Most High definitely hears prayer. From that point, I knew I could never be an atheist. I asked the Most High, and he answered. So we don't need idols, Israel. We don't need to make our own gods because our God made us. So these are things to be pointed out for reference purposes. All right. So somebody wrote, I don't think linguistics and the Bible go together. All right. So can you explain, BR, what you mean when you say you don't think that you don't think linguistics and the Bible go together? Can you take out the time to explain what you mean by that? But going back here, if we will, right? Looking at this here. All right. So when you say Hebrew doesn't exist in a vacuum, now enlighten me. I heard the term before in a vacuum, but what do people mean when they say in a vacuum? When you say typed in there, for instance, Hebrew doesn't exist in a vacuum. What I need you to hate to have to maybe say about myself, dumb it down. What exactly are you saying? When we go right here, brothers and sisters, right? Remember, Hebrews read from right to left. So you have Zamar, its root, Zimra, the noun, and then you have Mizmor, which is also a noun, but with the prefix of the mem, which you see inside, brothers and sisters, which you see inside of there in that particular case. It's not, it's like sole authority. So you're saying, if I'm hearing you right or reading you right, that Hebrew is not its sole authority? Or are you saying, and I hope now I'm not assuming that you're saying Hebrew is not important, or am I jumping the gun to even assume that's what you're implying or saying? I don't want to put words in your mouth or put words into the keyboard that don't exist. So looking at it like this, right? Let's continue, family. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 10. Now I stayed in the mount as at the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. And Yah hearkened unto me that time also. Yah would not destroy thee. Now let's look at the Hebrew. Remember, Hebrew read from right to left, right? Wa anoki amati bahar. Kayamim harishonim arba'im yom wa arba'im layla. Right? Yishma yode wahe elai. Gam bapa'am hahu. Lo abba yode wahe hash hitecha. Brothers and sisters, I want to just say this real quick. This word Abba that you see right here, we're going to show it underlined, is not Abba as in father. All right? This Abba, not ending, brothers and sisters, with the letter Aleph, it means destroy. So you see here, the Lord will not destroy thee. Lo Abba Yode Wahe, the Lord will not destroy. Now, brothers and sisters, in Hebrew, biblical Hebrew for sure, right? We have it to where the verb precedes the noun in many cases. I'm saying it's part of language, family. It has much older strings spoken in the motherland. All right. So that's not disagreed with. Definitely appreciate that. So don't hesitate, brothers and sisters, to leave a comment, as we can see there in that case. Let's go over some things here. Wa anoki. Anoki in this case means I. Amati. Ahmad in root means to stand. Amati. Now, brothers and sisters, following looking at this, right, with the pen, in Hebrew, right, the way you know when a verb is in the past tense is by looking at the suffix T in this case. Amati, I stood. Now, that's for a male or a female saying it. All right. Bahar. Bahar means what? In the mountain. The word har means mountain. All right. So Hari would mean my mountain. Kayamim as the days. Harishonim. Rishon means first. Ka Yamim Harishonim as the days of the first, or as the first days. Arba'im Yom, 40 days, or Arba'im Laila. What do we want to point out? And I stayed in the mount as the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. Now, this word here, Kayamim Harishonim, as the first time. Time, yamim. Yamim also means days. What do I want to point out? When you may have brothers and sisters in Israel saying Yom HaShabbat, the Sabbath day, and saying day is only the light part, brothers and sisters, if that was the case, and the word Yom also did not mean time, T-I-M-E, Deuteronomy 10 verse 10 will read as follows. Now I stayed in the mount as at the first days, 40 days and 40 nights. But therefore that makes no sense linguistically. So the word Yom, meaning day, also means time. Yom Kippur, the time of atonement, the day of atonement, starts the evening before. So these are things we want to point out for reference purposes with the whole day and night argument with brothers and sisters. All right, looking at it in that particular case. So in the mount or of the mount. See, this is what we're not going to do. No, see, I appreciate the question, but in no disrespect, what we're not going to do is, yeah, it's in the mount. The word bar means in. No, not of the mount. He stood in the mount. Within the mount, he stood. He wasn't standing of the mount. Israel was standing of the mount, meaning, in other words, outside of it. So that's not better to say of the mount. But getting back, if we will, brothers and sisters, into this. Wa anoki amati, and I, even I stood, bahar, in the mount, kayamim harishonim, as the days of the first, or as the time of the first. Which one sounds better once we get into this? Arba'im, meaning 40. Arba means 4. Arba'im, 40. Yom. Now, Arba'im, 40. Kamishim, 50. Shishim, 60. Shiv'im, 70. Shamonim, 80. All of that is for masculine or feminine. There is no feminine or masculine way to say 80, 70, 60. It serves all within the same premise in that case. All right? Why Yishma Yodhe Wahe Eli, and the Most High he heard to me. Gam also, but Pa'am Hahu, in that time also. But Pa'am, the word Pa'am also means T-I-M-E, in that time. But we see the word time here in the English, and we see the word time here. But this time, when it says at the first time, it says Kayamim Harishonim. Another point to make about the whole day and night that many Israelites may discuss is this. When the children of Israel left the land of Egypt, Deuteronomy 16 points out that it happened at night. It happened at nighttime when the sea was already open for the house of Israel. When they got all through to the other side, that took a whole nice time for the children of Israel to go through. Now in Jeremiah, it says, in the day that I brought you out of the land of Egypt. So now if day and night that some Israelites talk about means only daylight and night is separate, and say in that case, that would mean that doesn't make any sense, contradictory, therefore, by saying Deuteronomy 16 says the Lord brought you out at night. And then in Jeremiah, it says in the day that he brought you out, in Jeremiah 31. So the day in Jeremiah 31, brothers and sisters, can be properly translated in the time I brought you out. So these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. Are there any questions? Please put it into the chat. Thank you for that. All right. Let's continue, family. Psalm 92. It is a good thing to give thanks unto Yah and to sing praise unto thy name, O Most High. Brothers and sisters. Sorry, I had to drink something. Giving honor to the Most High. I remember when I was able to quit a job because there was another one lined up. You're talking about singing praises to the Most High, to be removed from a toxic environment? Yeah. When you read about the history of Hanukkah in the time of the Maccabees, it said they got cymbals and dances and the children of Israel sang and was happy. Antiochus Epiphanes, before that, made a decree that Israel was to not keep the Sabbath or the festival days, which means that even after the timing of the first temple, and certainly into the timing of the Maccabees, Israel was keeping the holy days that we see in Leviticus 23. If Israel wasn't keeping it, there will be no need for Antiochus Epiphanes to say, don't do the holy days. But getting back, into this, it says, it is a good thing to give thanks unto the Most High and to sing praises unto thy name, O Most High. Tob lahodot la yah. Now, how do you say thanks in Hebrew? Toda. Toda. Hodot. Todot. You get it? Hodu la yah ki tob ki le olam kasdo. Hodu la yah. Give thanks unto Yah, for he is good. Ki le olam kasdo, for his mercy endures forever. Hodu le Elohei ha Elohim. Give thanks to the God of gods. Ki le olam kasdo. Hodu la Adon Adonim. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. Ki le olam kasdo. That's Psalms 136. So now if we're saying Hodu, that's saying give thanks. That's somebody telling one to do so. Plural, command form. Hodeh is to the male. Hodah to the female. Hodu to multiple people. Hodot to males and females. This, pardon me, Hodot to females only. Sorry. Now let's look at this, if we will, family. Right? As my brother in spirit put in the chat, Todah. This lamed you see there being highlighted. Right? Let's look. If you add Latin transliteration under the Hebrew block letters, I think it's easier to learn. I appreciate that. Like if I were to take it, like say the word Tob and put T-O-B, yeah, that's how the lessons used to go. And I appreciate, thank you for saying that. The way we are at this point, if one was following along, and I definitely appreciate the constructive criticism, if you got the books, Hebrews Easy, volume 1-6, and went through the Hebrew class that's online, free. Hebrews for Hebrew, lessons 1-4, and into lesson 6, thoroughly, and my number's on it, you could be able to read. The way a brother did it on More Yeshaya Hebrew lessons is by lesson number 7, we already getting into verbs, because lesson 1 goes over the alphabet, the vowels in lesson 2, part 3, pardon me, not volume, but lesson number 3 gets into the vowels and the words put together, or the vowels and the letters put together, making words, and then part 4 is a review. So now by the time we get past lesson number 50, which we are now, probably less than if we were still number at 70 something, we are doing it in a certain way, but I definitely do appreciate that. Thank you. So now we see Tob lahodot. Good, it is. It is understood. Lahodot, to give thanks. That lamed means to give thanks. And who's always the one saying give thanks, give thanks? Just throwing it out there. To give thanks, la Yah. All nations represent in the name of their Elohim, or represent the name of their God. That's why it's important, brothers and sisters, to know who our Elohim is. We don't want to sit there and represent a false or a wrong God. You understand? Looking at it in that particular case, and it's not to get sidetracked. I remember, quote unquote, debate with a person into like the Egypt science or the Kemetic thing and so forth. And not that, no, I don't study it to worship it, the Neferu or the God of Egypt, or the Neteru as they call it. He quoted the wrong God of Egypt for a particular thing. See, you don't have that problem in Israel. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So we don't have the mistake of saying, oh, it's Sekhmet. Oh, I meant Hathor, Egyptian goddesses. Oh, it's supposed to be stated as Heru, and you sat there and said it was this and that. No, we don't have that problem in Israel, because we don't represent the name of any other Elohim. And so these are things we want to point out. Did you know that many of the people's normal names in the slave ships ended with the name Yah? When you go to slavevoyages.com, you will sit there and see Asaya, Abaya, Abiya, and so forth. That was in that case. Steven Spielberg knows what the truth is. Why you think perhaps in Amistad they got the woman singing Yahweh? That's not an accident. You understand? But now let's look at this. Tob lahodot la Yah. It is a good thing to give thanks to Yah. Ul zamer l'shimka elyon. And to sing praises l'shimka elyon. To your name. Now, brothers and sisters, we want to point this out. Right? Let's look at this lamed. Right? That is the matter of looking at that in that particular case. The lamed, meaning 2 or 4. So now, let's look if we can add that video into it. More Yeshaya Hebrew lessons. The letter Lamed. Let's see what comes up. Alrighty. Well, I explained it in this one as well, so I'm going to put that one in. All right. Thank you for that time, family. This is not a jab at Egypt. It's a praise to the Most High. In that particular case. Because if we're dealing with Israel, definitely Israel get jabbed at. Best believe that. Because the prophets of Israel mainly focused on Israel. On the platform, certainly Mora Yeshaya, history lessons, a brother stays getting on, quote, the black man and the black woman. So it's not, hopefully not to be intended or hopefully not thought of as, oh, it's a jab at Egypt. No, it's just setting that particular record straight in that particular case. All right. Looking at it in that particular manner. All right. Okay. So looking at it like that, this is called the matter of the Lamed Hey verb asa, present tense. But I explain in it in that particular case. All right. Somebody wrote, without Egypt, there will be no Hebrew people, language, or script. Really? Let's stop for a moment. You want the link so you can sit there and explain what you're talking about, sir? Or ma'am, whoever gender you are. When you sit there and say, without Egypt, there will be no Hebrew people or language or script. How is that possible? When the children of Israel said that Israel came forth out of Egypt, a people of strange language. So that means the script itself, the language itself is different. There wouldn't be no need for the son of Jacob, Joseph, to get an Egyptian name if they got the names and script and writings and language from the Egyptians. The Hebrew Joseph got an Egyptian name as he got older. So the fact that Hebrews got Egyptian names as they got older, the fact that ancient Egyptians had a name for Israel, Israel, or Amu, meaning Asiatics, or the fact that ancient Israel called Egypt Mizraim, each people calling the other people a particular name shows that the languages are different. So I'm asking, not to get sidetracked from what we're talking about, right? I'm asking this. When you say, without Egypt, there will be no Hebrew people, language, or script. How is that possible when the Hebrew people are not even from Egypt? I could share the link if you got your email. So if you want to talk about that, not to get sidetracked from the lesson here in that particular case. Are you talking about the Bible or linguistics language? No, in this, I'm going over the language that's in the Bible, namely in this particular case in Psalm 92. But I'm asking you in the question, let's look at this, or in the statement, let's look at this here, right? When it says, without Egypt, there will be no Hebrew people / language or script. So you're saying, if I'm hearing or reading you right here, right, that there would be no Hebrew people if it wasn't for Egypt, even though the Hebrew people are not from Egypt. All right, yes. So can explain himself better if he will allow. You can sit there and you can text me, all right, at 908-587-4841. And then from that text, I could send you the link. And if you have a microphone or able to talk through your headphones, you can sit there and talk about this matter as you're presenting it. All right. And saying without Egypt, there would be no Hebrew people, language, or script. I'm not too keen on that not to get sidetracked, when the Hebrew people were called the Habiru, brothers and sisters, inside of the Amarna records, which date back to the time of the 18th dynasty of Egypt. When Hatshepsut, also the queen of Egypt, during the 18th dynasty, said that she was happy for getting rid of the Amu people or the Asiatics, which included the Israelites. So I'm asking, looking at it from Egyptian records and Egyptian stances, looking at the fact that even the Bible in Genesis says it was a to'eba, or an abomination, for the Egyptians to eat with the Hebrews. How then, if that be the case, and it was the case, this is why when you look at, for instance, the Tutankhamun of ancient Egypt in Dynasty 12, you have the Haku-So-Sweat, or the Hyksos, coming in, so totally different dress than that of the Egyptians. So what you can do is send me a text at the number here. I'm going to put it up, if we will, at 908-587-4841. Open a constructive criticism in that particular case, right? And if you text me, I can see the text and your number and then send you the links so you can get into the chat itself. And that's definitely welcomed in that case. Until said time, we're going to continue, brothers and sisters, in this particular presentation. Thank you for that. All right. Now, this right here, brothers and sisters, says, Ul Zamer L'Shimka Elyon, and to sing praises to your name, O Most High. And what I was going to say was, I remember personally jumping up and down, not that I'm the greatest dancer, but jumping up and down and clapping hands, and I was so happy and exuberant. And may she rest in peace, my mother's picture was shown earlier in the music, the lady with the beads on with the head wrap, may she rest in peace, right? When I was able to leave a toxic job. And it's interesting because I'm friends with the guy who gave me the interview and hired me, and I thank him ever so often about even on a human level, allowing me to work, because that was my first job that I had, like in Manhattan, and it opened me up to a lot of things as far as the work environment is concerned. All right, so, but getting back into this here, let's look. To declare thy loving kindness in the morning and thy faithfulness in the night seasons. Now, this says, as we want to point out with the laser pointer, right? La Hagid Babokwir Kasdeka, where Emunatka Balelot. Now, La Hagid, to tell, to declare. We want to emphasize again, brothers and sisters, right? The Hebrew language comes from the Proto-Semitic, which is the earliest document branches, are East Semitic, the Akkadian, and Ebelite languages. Now, Ebelite languages, sorry. Now, let's look at this. What Beit Zadok wrote. Akkadian language was at one point the lingua franca. Ancient Israel definitely knew it. Lingua franca, though a Latin term, generally is talking about the language of a said particular area for a said particular time. Kind of like English in West Africa is the lingua franca, all right, in that particular case of today, all right? So looking at that, there was a comment saying, I can't argue with the Bible. When you're ready to discuss, we don't argue. I respect that. When you're ready to discuss outside the Bible, I may join your panel. All right. Well, you're definitely welcome. You got the number, and Keep us abreast. Is definitely welcome. All right. Thank you for that. So now, the Hebrew language comes from the Proto-Semitic, which earliest document branches are East Semitic, the Akkadian, and Ebelite languages. Have you ever heard of the Ebla tablets? The Ebla tablets is said to have been found in the East and basically is an external reference proving the book of Genesis. So just throwing that out there in that particular case, right? So let's look. You have lahagid babo queer kasdeka, to declare, to tell, to announce. Babo queer, in the morning. Kasdeka. We emunaka balelot. And thy faithfulness in the night seasons. What can we say in this particular case? Ancient Israel didn't just stop when it was not daytime. They were still doing things at night, as the book of Nehemiah points out. So now, if it says 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but now we're dealing with day and night, sad say argument in some cases in Israel, does that mean that you should not and would not work at night? No, of course that's not what that's saying in that particular case. All right, but let's look at this. Hagid, tell, when speaking to a male. Hagidi, tell, when speaking to a female. So when you're saying tell me what's going on. When you're speaking to a male, you use the word hagid. Speaking to a female, you say hagidi. All right, chesed means grace. Kasteka means your grace or your faithfulness. All right. So these are things that we care to bring out for reference purposes. All right. We're going to take an intermission at the moment, brothers and sisters, and we will be back within 5 minutes. Thank you for the time and joining on. Thank you for that.
There's a land over there, across the water.
Shalom, shalom. Can I be heard? Shalom, shalom. Can I be heard? Let me know. Thank you. We want to want to make sure one can be heard. Continue in this. All right. Thank you for that. Again, the song that everyone is speaking upon, that was just being played is a song called Yisrael, and the writer and the producer and the singer, may he rest in peace, was of the house of Yahuda. His name was Adon Dawid, and he was definitely an artist who definitely put his work in. And as you can see, may he rest in peace. He's been deceased for some years, and people are still, as we see tonight, still vibing and feeling that particular thing. So that means, brothers and sisters, put your work in. All right. If that man did not do that, then what would we be listening to? Know what I mean? Not trying to be funny or nothing like that in that particular case. All right. So let's look. When it says, thank you for that, Bait Zadok and BR, letting me know I can be heard. Thank you. Now let's look. Going into the next part. Now let's look. We emunatka. We emunatka. The prefix we. Now we want to color code this if we will, right? Let's look at this if we will. We have this here and we. All right. The word emuna from aman, meaning to agree. Aman is the verb. All right. So let's color code that if we will. All right. When the blue, the aleph, the mem, and the noon. Aman in Hebrew means to agree. So yes, amani is a Hebrew word as well. All right. So just want to point that out, if we will, for reference purposes. All right. Now, emuna means faithful. The word emuna becomes emunat. When we see the T there, the tau, brothers and sisters, let us color code this. Thank you for that. In that particular case, right? That hey becomes a tau. We went over showing the letter hey over here, right? That letter hey shown over here. Now we see, brothers and sisters, the letter tau. Emunat. Torah, law. Torat, law of. Isha, wife. Eshet, wife of. Faith, to faith of. Emuna, meaning faith or faithful. To the faithful of. Because the hey becomes a tau when showing possession. This is in the Hebrew book, Hebrew is Easy, Volume 4, which is a book you can get online. Any questions? Please feel free to put it into the chat. Thank you for that, family. For thou, Yah, has made me glad through thy work. I will exalt in the work of thy hands. Ki simaktani yodhe wahe, bafa aleaka. Always remember, family, Hebrew is easy. But ma'aseh yadeka aranein. Now let's look. Sameach. You might hear people online say, Yom Huledet Sameach, which is generally understood to translate happy birthday or happy day of birth. All right. So let's look. We have ki, because, or for, simaktani, sameach, sin memket, sin memket. Let's do a different color. All right. Sin memket. Sin memchet. All right. Sameach, happy. Simak tani. Simak tani. You made me happy. Now let's point this out, if we will, right? With the color code. Look at green. This tile that you see here, you have made. Simak, to make happy. So what does that point out? Sidebar. Well, you got to already be happy. Can't nobody make you happy. But yet people, dark energy, are saying somebody can make you mad. Let's think about that. If somebody can make you mad or angry, then somebody can make you happy. But when you're dealing with, like we pointed out earlier, not understanding your role as a priest and minister to the Most High, nobody can make you happy. You got to already be happy. But people can make you angry. How is it that people can make you angry, but people can't make you happy? Because you don't want it to be. Because then you're going to have to dig within yourself and say, I was humbled enough to sit there and be brought out my happiness and my joy. I can always sit there and mean mug and be mean and disrespectful and offend and tough in that quote unquote kind of way. But being seen as happy by some means that you're weak, which is ridiculous, brothers and sisters. But getting back into this, if you will, this tile signifies you, for you, thou. Okay? And now we want to color code again in the blue. In this blue here, ni, in this case signifies me. Simak, to make happy. Simakta, you have made one happy. Simaktani, you have made me happy. Now, we pointed out earlier that in many cases, let me know if there's any questions concerning this, right? The laser pointer, the noun follows the verb in many cases in Hebrew. All right? So these are things in part that we care to bring out for reference purposes. Questions, comments, let me know. Thank you. Now we go to the laser pointer. Bafa alecha. B, with or in. Pa alecha, fa alecha. The pay and fay hold the same numerical value. The pay and the fay both mean the same thing, meaning mouth. And there is no distinction between pay and fay when speaking. It's just a different pronunciation of the same letter. All right? Bafa aliaka. Pa'al, to work, to act. Now, where do we get that from? The word pa'al, right here, to work or to act. All right? Do modern and biblical have the same word order? No. Modern Hebrew, to be like what's spoken in quote the state of Israel today, has it to where you would put the verb before the noun or the noun before the verb. But in biblical Hebrew, you always would see the verb preceding the noun. All right. So just want to point that out in that particular case. As far as the word structure goes in that particular, that's an excellent question. Thank you for that. All right. Now we see here, pa'al means to work or to act. Pa'aleh, working of. Pa'aleh ka. This ka, brothers and sisters, looking at it like this, means your, whatever. In Hebrew, and we want to point this out, when you have a kaf at the end of a word serving as a suffix, if it is with a verb, it means you. If it's with a noun, it means your. Yad, hand. It's a noun. Yad ka, your hand. We went over the words ma'aseh yadeh ka earlier. All right, actually, looking at it like this, when it says, yeah, ma'aseh yadeh ka, this ka represents that. So let's point out, if we may, All right. More Yeshaya Hebrew lessons. The final kaf. Right? Kaf the suffix. All right. Looking at it like this. Copy. Comment. And looking at it there in that case. All right. So subscribe to the channel, More Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. We ask you to. Hopefully you do. And we can continue in this particular case here. All right. Let's continue as we begin to close out. Laser pointer. Bama aseh. Bama aseh. The bet is the prefix, as we see there. Hebrew reading from right to left. Ma'aseh comes from the word asa. Asa, the verb, means to do or to make. Ma'aseh means action or doing. Asa is the verb meaning to do or to make. By putting a mem in front of it, as you've been instructed or advised, let me put it like that, to go into that video that we see there, right? About the matter of, let me see, which one is this? Just want to make sure. Okay, that is the matter with the, that's, so now we got the mem is already done. That's already up there. Okay, continuing on. Yadeka, your hands. The word for hand, as we pointed out, means is yad. Hand means yad, yad means hand. Maybe if we were to say hand means yad, as opposed to only saying yad means hand, maybe we'll get the links quicker. Oh, who knows? The word for hand is yad, but my suggestion, learn the Hebrew that you speak all the time. And your vocabulary will increase greatly. And your conversation will increase. Learn the words that you speak all the time, okay? The ka at the end signifies your. Aranein, I will sing, I will rejoice. The aleph in this serves as a prefix discussed in Hebrews Easy Volume 3, meaning I. So the aleph that we see there, all right, in the green. Oh, and I highlighted, sorry. In the green, we see here that aleph, brothers and sisters, represents I, whatever. That could be a male or a female saying it. Ani serves for males and females. All right. Aranin comes from the root word ran or ranan, which means ran or ranan. Ran, one word, or ranan. It means to sing or to rejoice. So you may want to get Hebrews Easy Volume 3 for that as well. How great are thy works, O Yah? Thy thoughts are very deep. Ma gatlu, from the word gadal, means to be great. The word gadlu, brothers and sisters, we see here gadlu comes from the root word gadal. The word gadal means to be big or to be great. Ma'aseaka, from the word ma'ase, meaning action, the mem serving as a prefix there. You are welcome to take screenshots and pictures of these slides, brothers and sisters, just so you know. Makshaboteka, the ka serving as a suffix meaning your, as we see there. Makshabote, your thoughts. Mak kashaba means thought. The mem serving as a prefix. The Hebrew word kashab means to think. Now, brothers and sisters, we want to point out with the highlighter, the word kashab, for those who do know, I used to refer to myself as kashub, right? But the word kashab, brothers and sisters, means to think. The word kashub means important. So it shows you that thinking is important in Hebraic thought. Ka is the second person pronoun suffix in Akkadian, Arabic, Tigrinya, if I mispronounce it, let me know, as well as showing the linguistic branch it derives from. That's very, very informative and very true. I want to take out the time if I may. Thank you for that, family. All right, with the timing allotted. And let's look. And let's see if we will, right? Thank you for that. If we go into this, I believe, and looking at it like this, looking at it like that, nope, that's not what I wanted to see in that particular case. Doom, 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 doom. Okay, we can use this. Let's look at this, family, all right, to complement what our friend was saying there in that particular case. Semitic languages, relationship between Semitic languages, West Semitic, East Semitic, Akkadian, Old Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian. Babylon is mentioned in the scriptures, and we see right here, all right, if we go slideshow from current slide, Eblaite, and this is what our friend was pointing out earlier in that particular case. Then when we get into this kind of matter, right? Central Semitic, South Semitic, Canaanite languages, Aramaic languages, modern Hebrew, modern Aramaic languages. You do know that Daniel spoke Aramaic. You do know part of Jeremiah is written in Aramaic. You do know that some of the kings of the northern kingdom of Israel, their names are Aramaic. All right. Just want to point that out. So now we see that Hebrew is intertwined with the languages that we see in Eastern Africa. Hebrew is not a European language. That's not racist. That's a fact. So just want to point that out. Now let's look again. All right. At this case here, I want to emphasize this if we will. All right. Makshabot terka. Kashab, to think. That mem, making the word kashaba into a noun. Makashaba means a thought. Makshabot, that bo, that o sound with the b. Makshabot, that o makes it plural. Teka, this ka represents your. Because kashab is a verb, makashaba, brothers and sisters, is the noun. But that hey becomes a tau, and the ka serves as a suffix, meaning your whatever. All right? So let's look. Ka is used as a second person pronoun suffix in ancient Egyptian, ? It's ka in ancient Egyptian. Okay. All right, listen, you're going to have to sit there and take out the time and explain, because in one thought, you're saying you don't want to quote argue, we quote the Bible. But what we're not going to do is say that something as simple as ka came to the Hebrews from the Egyptians. We're not doing that, because ruach in Hebrew means spirit, but the word for spirit in Egyptian is the word ba. But in Hebrew, ba means in. So those are the same words in two different languages, meaning two different things. So this is something we want to point out in that particular case. All right. Hebrew Semitic is the youngest in its language family. And that means what? Let's say it is the youngest, so what? I'm one of the youngest teachers. What does that mean? I'm one of the youngest in my family at events. And it's not to be argumentative or anything of that kind of sort, but it's just for reference purposes. What is the point or emphasis on saying it's one of the youngest? Benjamin is the youngest tribe in Israel, but they were warriors. Benjamin had more sons than any of his brothers, having 10, where Judah only had 3. Levi only had 3. Naphtali had 4. Dan only had 1. So I'm not trying to be funny or anything like that. I just want to understand what is the Ba in Egyptian spirit or the Ruach in Hebrew spirit, and even coming and saying that Hebrew Semitic is the youngest in the language family. And I'll put the number there if you have wanted to sit there and get that in that particular case. Because when you put in the chat, and again, Semitic is not the authority of these words. That is actually totally incorrect. See, we're not going to do that on Day and Night Publications, saying there's no Ba in Egyptian, because if you're going to say that, you're going to have to explain what were they talking about in the Middle and New Kingdom of Egypt. What was Ramses talking about when he said he did something and quote the Ba of Heru in the spirit of Horus, to put it in modern pronunciation? What was he talking about? And I don't believe in Horus or Heru. I'm just asking a question, saying in that particular case. All right. Just want to sit there and emphasize that. But maybe you thought, not trying to be funny, I was knocking on Egypt or something of that sort, which was not the case. But just something to sit there and get emphasis pointed out in that particular case, for reference purposes. But to say there's no Ba in Egyptian, you're going to have to sit there and explain the writings of Ramses II concerning that, as he definitely spoke upon that in that particular case. And I personally know that from studying it, when I thought that Ramses was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. You understand? Running across information. So that's not accurate. In that particular, again, this is no disrespect intended or anything of that kind of sort. You was offered the telephone number. You said you didn't want to argue. In that particular case, you can't argue the Bible, but then the language that the Bible is in, you're saying that it's one of the youngest, which sounds argumentative, but I could be assuming. And say in that particular case. All right, hold on, family. All right, so, but yeah, okay, so how exactly do you prove that you can see elements identical to the Hebrew language in ancient Eblaite, Akkadian, etc.? How do you determine which came first? See, what I've noticed, and it's not about me saying things or whatever like that, is in some cases, in talking about this kind of subject, or quote talking about things, say with Israelites, it becomes in part a thing of which one was older, which civilization was older, or anything of that kind of sort. The scriptures, I didn't prove it, the scholars did. But what scholars? Because we can sit there and define the word scholar, meaning student. So who are the scholars that sat there and proved about you can see elements identical to the Hebrew language in ancient Ebelite, Akkadian, etc.? How do you determine which came first? See, the reason why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking is this: do they speak the language of it? And how do they say determine a said matter in a said thing? Like, what timing and calendar do they use? Because the Egyptian calendar is different than the Hebrew calendar. Like, I remember talking with even a relative recently. Also, it's like, well, this predates Adam and Eve. But if you don't know that Adam means man, being with Kawa, transliterated as Eve, meaning life, from man and life, you get life. How do you put a particular time frame, say, upon that using AD, Denomi, or BCE before the Common Era? You understand? So just looking at it in that particular case and so forth and so on. But yeah, just looking at it like that in that particular case. Yeah. Any questions or comments concerning what we were talking about? Definitely feel free to do so in that particular case. All right. When you say look something up, look up what? Let me give you an example. Like when I sat there and did the presentation, I said this came from this book or this came from this reference or this came from this particular matter. For instance, when you said the thing about Ba, I particularly went to a time frame of ancient Egypt to narrow the time frame. So once one have to sit there and study 30 or so dynasties to try to find one particular thing. All right. When a brother wrote a book, be it Egypt Talking Writing, Deuteronomy 28, History Untold to the Masses, history as it relates to the world, we have to try to narrow things down, say as much as possible. So something being older does not make something the parent of another. According to Laurent Bennett Jr. in his book, if you were to cite sources, he wrote a book called Before the Mayflower. And in his book, Before the Mayflower, right, he said that the Egyptians are younger than the Ethiopians. So now the question is, if we were to say that, can we then say that the Egyptian language is a child to the Kushite language? If ancient Sumer and the cuneiform writings predate the hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt by X amount of centuries, does that mean that the Egyptians got their stuff from the ancient Sumerians? As you stated earlier by saying to the effect of there will be, without Egypt, there would be no Hebrew people, language, or script. So with that spirit that you was making a comment concerning, I have to ask you this. If the Egyptian language is younger than the cuneiform of ancient Sumer, and if ancient Sumer had a name for Egypt, and ancient Sumer had a name for Ethiopia, one being Magan and one being Meluha, when you study the work of Kramer, who spoke about ancient Sumerians, mind you, Sumer is mentioned in the Bible as Shinar. I have to ask you this. Can we then say by default, being that Egypt is younger than Ethiopia and Sumer, did the ancient Egyptians get their style of writing and culture and so forth from the Ethiopians or the Sumerians, is my question. When you say look it up, I just asked a particular question for a particular reason. We know that the ancient Egyptians never even claimed, after they stated from the Scorpion dynasty before the time of Namer, who, quote, unified Egypt under Dynasty 1 in the Old Kingdom. When you read about what they said they came from and what, quote unquote, the Scorpion dynasty before 3200 BCE, they said that they come from the place that later on was called Renzori. Renzori is by modern day Uganda. That's where the people called ancient Egypt said that they came from. So I'm asking this, in light of all of that, Sumerian writing, referred to commonly as the cuneiform, and the Ethiopian language, referred to as Ge'ez and Amharic and so forth and so on, both being older than the Metuneta, both being older than the Egyptian. Taking your logic, can we say that the Egyptians got their culture, style, and writing from the Ethiopians and or the Sumerians? I'll wait.
Blessed be the name of the Most High God. Truly we praise the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob forever and ever. Because he is the strength of our lives. Thanking the Most High God for getting us here all safe. And pray to the Most High God that He would bless us with a safe return. Truly, it is a blessing that all of us can come in here and praise the Most High God's name in unity. I'm happy to see all of you, and I want you to know that I love each and every last one of you. And I pray that you would give me the same love in return. The name of the song is Where There's Peace, There's Love.
Where there is peace, I believe there is love. Where there is peace, I believe there is love. All things come.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. This is how we do it right here, y'all. Yeah. What? For the 2K1. First and foremost, giving honors and praises to the God of our lives. This is how we out. This is how we do it. Shari is our car. On the 2K1, y'all. Yeah. Volume 3. Rocking it for Shema Yisrael. The whole Yisrael all over the world. This is how we do it. Bring it on, Zakar. What?
In my life, I felt the love of God was deep in me. It was deep in me, yeah. He was near, so very close to me. I did not see. But why should I turn away from him when he's my love? Oh, he took me from the ghetto and spoke to me from up above. Oh, yeah, I sold my soul for love. My love is only God. My love for God. My love for God. He is mine. Yahweh, you are mine. My love will only shine for you. I said every time I turned away from him, he chastised me. Chastised me. Oh, yeah. He said, look, here's our car. Won't you do what's right? And follow me. And things look good. And my life is fine. So why should I? Cheat.
Shalom, shalom. Can I be heard, family? All right. I don't sing. May they both rest in peace, right? Michael Jackson did sing, and James Brown did sing. Michael Jackson said publicly that without James Brown, Michael Jackson, would not exist as an artist. Was by default Michael Jackson the successor of James Brown, or did each sing their own thing and did their own work? When we say, okay, taking the comments that was stated that about one's teacher or one's said predecessor, that's not always the case. We're not going to sit there and know that those of us who have children and see how they begin to walk and talk and run and play, that one learned that from another child. That words like ba and ka that babies say must have came from a, quote, another civilization. We're not going to say that, brothers and sisters, because that is silliness. And I say that in no disrespect intended. You understand? So when looking at the comments and not fully understanding everything that's being portrayed or presented, this is why I was saying the number is there. I would have sent the link, could have discussed it sensibly, maturely, respectfully, and so forth and so on. Now, this is, again, not to take anything from what we were talking about in the presentation, right? But let me say this. One of the things I intend to do in a presentation in the future, right, is when people say things like the Bible in Psalms 104 is copied from the hymn of Akhenaten, because a part of it says something similar to of each other, saying that the lion roars for its prey. Okay, the Egyptians seen lions roaring, and the Hebrews saw the lions roaring. It doesn't mean that one copied the other. What trips me out, not to get sidetracked, is when people would say that the creation stories were copied from each other when none of the people from Sumer and ancient Iraq, all the way right down to the people in West Africa, the Nok people, going east all the way to the people in China, going west all the way to the Apache, none of them were there when the Most High made the heavens and the earth. So how then can we see something that's done before all of our existence and then say that somebody copied the story from someone else when the stories don't even relate to each other outside of saying the way people understood the creation was done? I'll tell you how. It is because wanting to downgrade another. See, that did not happen with these, as you put in the comment about these scholars in the universities. These scholars in the universities don't, like UCLA, for instance, they don't sit there and analyze like, hold on, Akhenaten said about the lion roaring, and David or Asaph of Israel said about the lion roaring. Maybe they both saw the lion roaring. No. It is another people's concept, a third party, not even from the Hebrews or the Egyptians, that said the Hebrews copied from the Egyptians because one was older than the other. Yet at the same token, this is why I asked earlier, the Egyptians not being the oldest people, by their own admission, when you read about what the first and second dynasties are said to have said about the Scorpion dynasty and where they said they came from, if we're taking the logic that the Hebrews were younger and therefore did not have their own everything, then that means the Egyptians, by that logic, had not their own, quote, everything. You understand? Saying, looking at it, say in that particular case. So these are the same scholars, and it's not to get self-centered that while having a degree myself and taught in a college for 5 semesters, these are the same kind of scholars, the same kind of, quote, professors in these said universities. They have a syllabus that they have to follow. There's a reason why the classes that get into concepts of the cat turning from a dog and the birds turning into something else, that they have to sit there and say that that is, quote, a theory and say that particular case. So what I'm asking for was where one's logic or one's understanding came from. Because when you read, for instance, in the Sumerian records, and I know you said that you didn't mention Sumer, but I did. When you read about the Enuma Elish in the Gilgamesh epic, and then you read about the Egyptian story, and that's from Sumer that I just mentioned, and then you read the Egyptian story, having 3 or 4 creation stories, one of them being gross, as for those who do know about the pyramid text 1245, but getting into the subject matter to try to make logic, say in this particular case, every one of us was created after the creation. So how then can we then say that somebody created that? And me having like a little princess who's now going to be 19, and seeing how development is speaking, there's no way that I can sit back and think that somebody taught Ba and Ka to a whole nother person. We're not doing that. That's what I'm saying as far as it goes with that in that particular case. If you understand where one's coming from. All right. I didn't say I didn't have any predecessors. Looking at the comments, I give respect to my teachers. I said that people who have taught before me does not make them my predecessors. I big up and praise on the human level my teachers in the books. I ask their children, can I acknowledge another man's parents while not even always acknowledging my own father? May he rest in peace. So I take that statement about me saying I have no predecessors is actually totally incorrect. I don't know what you're hearing. I don't know if the microphone is working right. That's why I asked, can I be heard? Well, let me know by pressing 4. But I know, and looking upon that kind of statement is actually false and incorrect in that particular case. I tell the people who was drumming in a recording that there would be, quote, no more Yeshaya if I had not been listening to the music that spiritually influenced me to want to study and say that particular case. So, no, what I was saying directly was just because somebody taught before me doesn't make them my predecessor. That's what I was saying. I didn't say I didn't have no predecessors or teachers. I'm saying just because one is a teacher doesn't make one my predecessor because I'm now a teacher myself. That's the point that I was driving home in that particular case. All right. So just looking at in that particular case, and anyone know, that means self-taught. You can't, and I'm going to say this in no disrespect. One cannot say one is self-taught in citing another man's book, citing another man's video. You learn from that man's video or book, even if you don't know the person. I never met Laurent Bennett Jr., but I cite him in my book. I never met Ivan Sertima, who wrote before, they came before Columbus, but I cite him in my book. So when anybody says one is self-taught, how can that logically be the case? When you're saying for us to go and talk to people in colleges, or the professors have stated it, or the scholars have stated it. If you're self-taught, if I'm not misreading what you're saying, then you teach us. I would have given you the link if you commented or sent the text. So I would like to ask this. How is a person self-taught that's not after the age of 5? Because by then you learn how to walk, talk. In certain cases, run, play. And not to put my daughter on blast, by the time she's 5 and 6, she knows who I can get things from. Can't ask him, can't ask her. You want something, you got to go to the other person, or go to another person and ask another person for you. And I'm not saying my little princess is a manipulator as a child. I'm saying that people already pick up on certain things by certainly 5 and 6. So I'm saying this. If a person is saying that they're self-taught, how can that be when you're telling us to go and sit there and speak to professors and scholars? That means that one cannot be, by definition, self-taught. When I sit there and cite Kohen Mikael, my Hebrew teacher, for those who do know who I'm talking about, in his book, Israelites and Jews, The Significant Difference, which I cite in my book, may the Most High continue to bless his life. When I cite Rudolph Windsor from Babylon to Timbuktu, or Valley of the Dry Bones, may the Most High continue to bless his life. I never met Rudolph Windsor. He's not my predecessor. By default, he taught from the 1960s. I began to teach Torah to the Most High, now focused on self, ever since the year 2005, 2006 time frame like that. So these are things to be pointed out or asked in that particular case. No, we're not doing no self-made. We're giving honor to the Most High. And giving honor and praise to the Most High, this presentation is going to come to a close. We hope and pray everybody as well, and will be better. Shalom. Stay tuned. We intend to get more presentations done. Subscribe to the channel. Shalom.